Good morning, Alberta. Today we're going to talk about the Green Line in Calgary. It's a topic that a whole lot of people are talking about, so let's us get at it and see what we can discover. By way of introduction, today's guests include Davis Whitby. Davis is a fourth-year student in urban studies and political science at the University of Calgary. He's also the communication director for the Alberta Party's Calgary Northwest Constituency Association. We're also going to chat with Chris Tesarski. Chris is the Calgary-based CEO of Solvaqua Inc., a clean water technology company, international company with headquarters here in Calgary. He's also the Shadow Minister for Municipal Affairs for the Alberta Party. So I'm going to ask each of you to say a few words about the Green Line, and we'll get into the details afterwards. Davis, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. So again, the Green Line is roughly a decade in the making, and many years passed since the 1980s with the original BRT mobility corridor in the North Central. It's a much needed and overdue addition to Calgary's light rail transportation system. The Green Line will accompany both the Red and the Green Line existing rail lines, moving Calgarians all across the city from points A to B to C into D, back to A again, day in and day out for many decades to come. The project itself will be the largest ever in Calgary. It'll be the largest in money and size and scope. And it's the most ambitious infrastructure project, signaling the city's desire to become a radiant city, charting the course for the future of this province into prosperity.
Thank you, Davis. That's a good overview of the Green Line. Chris, a short statement on how you see the Green Line in Calgary?
Trond, as I have traveled across the North America and also around the world, one of the things that has struck me the most is that cities and countries, states that are committed to evolving into a 21st and 22nd century economy have one thing in common at the heart of it, and that is a robust public transportation system. All of them are committed to seeing connecting, as Davis pointed out, quadrants and areas of their cities and their regions into a cohesive mix of economy as well as growth and prosperity and population, cleaning up old areas of different cities, and turning it into, I love that term, a radiant city. Okay, that's incredibly important as we move our economy forward. And so we must evolve, and public transportation is at the heart of that. And our municipalities need to be committed to seeing robust public transportation infrastructure put into place. And with that, we will continue to thrive and prosper and grow. Infrastructure is an amazing way of creating economic opportunity in a city, and Calgary is committed to that, and I'm committed to that. I think it's an incredible opportunity for us here.
Thanks, Chris. There's no question that transportation is very important. But you know, I want to understand a couple of other things about this before we get into some of the other details. Davis, how's the Green Line funded at this point? I mean, Chris, you talked about 4.9 billion. I know that there's some news media they're talking about 5.5 billion. I don't know what the number is. Davis, who's coming up with the money? Besides the taxpayers, of course, but
exactly. So the Green Line Stage 1 is a project which invests directly into Calgary and its citizens, and it exists under a trilateral funding agreement between all three levels of government. So the city of Calgary overall hosts roughly $1.56 billion of the Stage 1 funding, with an additional about $600 million in financing costs and associated with delays and just interest rates, etc. And since 2013, the city has dedicated over a 30-year period, $52 million annually, to ensure that they meet their funding commitment without adversely affecting the budget, the city's budget over this same time period. The Government of Canada in 2015, under the Conservative Party, announced their commitment to roughly $1.53 billion in the largest ever, I'll say that again, the largest ever federal investment for an infrastructure project in Alberta, which was later reaffirmed by the Liberal government in 2018. Now, lastly, in 2017, the Government of Alberta under the NDP announced their commitment of the $1.53 billion, over roughly a decade. So this announcement by the government and finalized the agreement, ensuring the project had the necessary funds available to undergo project procurement and construction. So that $4.9 billion is what you kind of see right now in current costs. That 5.5 is what we can see with costs and delays and just how things change over time with inflation and exchange rates and such.
Yeah, that's really interesting. But these delays that have been in the news lately, which have been very upsetting to a whole lot of the city councillors in Calgary, including the mayor, who rarely gets upset about anything, at least publicly. He doesn't. So what's happening with the funding from the government of Alberta at this point, Davis? It seems to me that they've pulled the plug. They haven't pulled the plug. They've said wait for a year and a half.
Yeah, so the government has kind of been playing some games with the Green Line funding. So back in 2019, the UCP government announced that they're going to withhold roughly 86%. I'll say it again, 86% of the province's committed funding for the project over the next 4 years. So that was a number originally in the area of about $550 million over 4 years, and was reduced to just $75 million for 4 years overnight. This move significantly complicated the city's ability to move forward meaningfully anyway on this project. According to council and city administration, this reduction in funding forced the project to grind to the halt because there's just simply no way a project of this magnitude can survive on $75 million. This is no more apparent than if you take the words of Councillor Keating, which some people could call the father of the Green Line. And he said, a $75 million contribution to a project like this is technically worthless. So this provincial funding cut is complicated by the fact that the federal contribution is only paid out until the project is over. So at this point, the city becomes the sole funder of such a mega project. As a result of this delay and the province's abdication of their agreement with the city will incur millions of dollars of debt and other financial penalties related to the halt in its progression. Now, not too long after the province announced that they would reduce their funding commitment over the next 4 years by 86%, the provincial government also unveiled Bill 20. Now, Bill 20 included a clause wherein the province, at any time, for any reason, or no reason at all, they could revoke any or all of the province's $1.53 billion commitment to the Green Line project with only 90 days of notice to the city. Importantly to note, this move was not made with any consultation or notice to the city. This was a complete surprise to city council, city administration, but more importantly, to contractors and other major stakeholders in this project. There's no confidence that this project can be built if money can just be pulled away at a whim. So this move, along with the 86% reduction in funding, forced the city to pause all work that was currently underway on the project, as well as suspend all project procurement endeavors, costing the city more and more each and every day.
So, Chris, what I just heard from Davis is pretty disturbing. Imagine a market investment and somebody says, yeah, we have a plan, we'd like you to invest, but we may pull out of it too. What do you think? You still want to invest? I mean, this is really troublesome, Chris.
Well, I can tell you how Toronto and New York would respond to such an investment proposal, because I've had lots of experience dealing with people from there. This is a sham. If I heard Davis correctly, and I know I did, he said 1.53B, right, from Ottawa. Is that correct? This is the government, of course, that doesn't care about Alberta. And so $1.53 billion has come our way, or is about to come our way. Add that to the 1.7 billion that they gave us to clean up wells. Add that to the hundreds of millions and whatever that, and really what we're seeing is the same mode of behavior. And it's a stubbornness by this government to not acknowledge the fact that people in Canada care about Calgary. Canadians care about this city, and they care about Alberta, and the federal government cares about Alberta. But that doesn't go very well with the talking points, right? Because they can fool Canadians and fool especially Albertans into thinking, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I guess I'll go and how the saying goes, right? I'll just go pout, and that lets me get on Fox News and I can say what I want. None of this is making any sense. except that when you look at the platform of this government, which the only thing they have to run on, okay, is Alberta good, Ottawa and the rest of Canada bad. And so anything that feeds into that narrative that shows that that's a load of you know what, okay, is not workable for this government. And so the way I see it right now is this is perfect. The delay allows us to bamboozle Alberta taxpayers, give some money to companies that leave Calgary and go to Denver, leave Calgary and go elsewhere, lay off a bunch of people, change from being an oil and gas company over to being a healthcare company, and give some contracts to friends. How much did that cost? A war room, and on and on and on and on it goes. And there's why there's no money, right? Is because this government has frivolously and foolishly spent money on everything else so that they can take Calgarians and Albertans away from the truth. And the truth of the matter is that Canadians want to thrive and prosper in a united Canada with Alberta at its beating heart, okay? And they care, and the money has been allocated, but that doesn't fit well with this false narrative that this government continues to propagate. And so that's my take on it. Quite frankly, that's where I see that this is a great way to delay and lie to Albertans and Calgarians about the commitment that the government of Canada and other Canadian taxpayers have had to this great province. Sad, shameful, absolutely shameful.
Yeah, I find this really troubling. And Davis, I want to ask you a couple of questions related to some of the points that Chris has just brought out. Transportation Minister Rick McIver, who's well known in the city of Calgary, of course, right, has told some city councillors apparently that he wants a delay until after the municipal election, which is next October the 18th, and even into 2022. Now, he denies he said this, okay? He did a Twitter post that said, no, I didn't say this, right? But apparently there are city councillors who said, no, he actually said this, right? So take it for what it's worth based on Rick McIver's track record. So with the city losing $1.5 million a month on this project at this point, that's a very long and expensive wait. And I think Chris has addressed some of the motivation there in terms of their talking points. But Davis, I want to ask you a couple of questions so we can get to, this is not just another transportation project. This happens in the world of politics. We know how that works, right? But how's the Green Line going to help build the Calgary of tomorrow? And can you give me an example or two? And what's the economic impact and what's the environmental impact of three questions, right? I'll remember them in case you don't.
Sure. No. So the Green Line will help build the Calgary of tomorrow because transit infrastructure projects such as the Green Line are inherently city building projects. They're not just train building projects. They direct development and growth of the city into the future through their ability to rethink mobility and spur development, inviting new businesses and residents. Each stop along the Green Line, as I had mentioned, will transform weakened communities and enrich already vibrant ones. In particular, the Green Line will transform our conception of development from one of sprawling congested suburbs to that of radiant and diverse interconnected communities. Some communities will see significant densification and mixes of uses, while others will remain as the suburbs that many Calgarians love and call home. But importantly, our collective dependency on the private automobile will be reduced, lowering the amount of traffic for those who will continue to commute by car, while providing more equitable access to other means of navigating the city for others. If you want to talk more about the economic impacts, short and long term of the Green Line, as we've mentioned before, the Green Line is roughly a $5 billion investment into the city of Calgary and its citizens focused on a strategic long-term population growth and business development program. A fundamental misconception about transportation systems is that they're just a way to move people around, which they are, that's true, but they also draw in new private investments for development. They attract young professionals, families, and businesses, small and large, to the city. This is very important at a time when we are seeing families and young professionals and businesses leaving the provinces at large. The city administration estimates that the Green Line will generate up to about $2 billion of outside investments for the city in new developments and employment opportunities for Calgarians. Additionally, these estimates also suggest the Green Line could also boost property values in the Green Line corridor by an additional $2 billion by 2040. It is also estimated that roughly 200,000 new jobs would be within walking distance of the Green Line, allowing for a more fluid and efficient movement of people, ideas, and goods and services. Now, in the short term, the Green Line will create up to 20,000 jobs in support of building Stage 1 Green Line, something that the city desperately needs in a time of such uncertainty in the job market. If provincial funding were not being withheld at the moment, we could have seen the groundbreaking and actual construction of this project, putting Calgarians back to work during this pandemic and for many years to come as we work to rebuild our COVID devastated economy. Now, in terms of the economy, the Green Line will follow the same premise as the red and the blue lines, which is actually the carbon usage will be offset by wind credits that the city purchases. In addition to that, it will reduce, as I mentioned, our dependency on the private automobile and actually encourage more use over time. So we'll see more people taking more environmentally sound methods of transportation, including chaining their trips with walking, biking, scootering, and taking their car to reduce those ridership numbers on the roads. So this generally is going to be a very good economic environmental project that will boost Alberta and Calgary into the future.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things about this. You're talking about short-term 20,000 jobs. You're talking about bringing 200,000 people closer to work, in effect, being able to get to work. We know how that's needed. And it really bothers me that apparently Rick McIver and the UCP government doesn't really care about the jobs. Now, remember that they were elected based on promising jobs and pipelines. Well, the pipelines are out, and now apparently they don't want the jobs either that come with this, and the economic impact. Chris, I'm going to get too worked up if I keep talking about that, so I'm going to ask you to address it.
Well, I get angrier as I listen to Davis talk more. I mean, and one thing I'll be very clear, you keep calling him Rick McIver. If only he was MacGyver, okay? Because MacGyver can take a baling wire and a tape dispenser and a nail, and turn it into a car, right? This is MacIver, and he can't do anything, okay? So basically, here we are. And all I'm going to say, Trond, and you've heard me say this before, and without turning this away from a family YouTube channel, okay, this is the cash grab. It's the UCP cash grab. MacIver, okay, I'll emphasize it again, has been told, well, we have nothing, okay, so keep doing nothing with nothing. Okay, don't go out and try and be innovative. Don't go try and do so. Go look for more money under the cushions. And there's Calgary. Go beat them up at lunch on the playground and get their money from them. Okay, because we don't want to give them money for a project that might mean less people use oil. It's ridiculous. GM has announced they're going to electric cars. Las Vegas has turned their whole transit system. Las Vegas has turned their whole transit system away from diesel into natural gas, of all things. If you go to Disney World or you go to Disneyland, what do they show in the cities of tomorrow? A bunch of people driving around in big, huge pickup trucks? No, they move people on people movers, monorails. That's what people had envisioned. And you know what? In cities that are actually moving forward into the future and not going on Fox News and blaming the Prime Minister and Joe Biden for all their economic troubles that have been caused by them, okay, what do? They move people around in innovative and effective and efficient ways of transportation. And I'll say it again, at the beating heart of every city and region that wants to evolve from the 21st into the 22nd century and beyond, public efficient transportation is at the heart of it. And until we get that right, we are not going to evolve. I hate the Deerfoot Trail at rush hour. And if there was a way that we could get onto a public transit system that moves us around the city efficiently and effectively, it's a winner. Denver built it. You can go from your beautiful hotel in downtown Denver all the way out onto public transportation, all the way out to the airport and in points between. And they even made the one that goes to the airport look like an old silver bullet train, right? It's cool, actually. Makes old train noises as it's traveling down the track, but it's a 21st century public transportation vehicle. And that's what we need to do. And if a place like Denver can do it, Calgary's sister city, then this sister better get at it. And the only way we're going to get at it is by not relying on this government anymore to move us into the future, because obviously they've proved that they cannot. All they're interested in doing is stealing our lunch money from projects that we have and applying it back over to their friends in Edmonton to do other projects. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop. And like I say, if only MacGyver was able to take a nail and some tape and make a car out of it, we'd be in much better shape, but he's not. This government has no creative thinking and innovation in their genealogy, in their genes at all, okay? And that's, I think, the problem where we're at. And that's why we're seeing these delays, and shame on them. And it's horrible that in the, Davis, he's a fourth-year student at university studying this stuff. Listen to what he's saying. Listen to the benefit that comes by doing this project and the facts around it. Facts. We've got to get back to facts again in this province. And the facts speak loudly that if we're going to evolve and we're going to become successful and continue to be successful as a province, we've got to start thinking into the future. Have to.